Good morning, everyone. So, well, thank you very much for joining us today. Again, it's a pleasure to have you join us on a weekly basis on Tuesday morning. I mean, today we had decided to focus the coffee chat to Colombia. I mean, I have probably some of my best friends in Colombia, and two of them actually are joining us today with Santiago Pérez from the Gobernación de Antioquia. Hi, Santiago, if you wanna say hi. And David González from the Agencia Nacional de Minería in Bogotá. So we have a Rolo and we have a Paisa. We're good. We have a quota of a.
Well, we're actually two Paisas. So
we have two Paisas actually. I'm from Medellin as well.
That is perfect. But yes, I'm going to be starting, guys.
But based in Bogotá.
I'm going to be starting with a very classic, obligation that I have, which is the disclaimer, just to introduce the talk. So the opinion expressed by today's panelists are their personal views. So it's your personal views, Santiago and David, okay? And may not reflect the views of the organization that they represent. Whenever possible, AMI has verified the accuracy of the information provided by third parties, but does not under any circumstances accept responsibility for any inaccuracies should they remain unverified. It is expected that webinar attendees will use the information provided in this webinar in conjunction with other information and with sound management practices. AMI, therefore, will not assume responsibility for commercial loss due to business decisions made based on the use or non-use of the information provided in today's webinar. So basically, as you can see, I still have the same strong French accent when I speak English. Today, I have the right. It's the national day. It's Basti's Day today. So it's for 14th of July, the National Day of France. So we're celebrating it in the house. And I'm celebrating with you, therefore, David and Santiago. Thank you for joining us. It's good to have you on board. Maybe I'd like to introduce each one of you. So I mean, David from the Agencia Nacional de Minería, as I was saying, you probably are one of the best sources and the best source of information on mining development in Colombia, and you'll be able to tell us the changes that are occurring in the Agencia Nacional de Minería and the strategy for the coming weeks and months. And Santiago, if you want to say, you're on mute, Santiago, by the way. Santiago is from the Gobernación de Antioquia. He might have a little bit of an Australian accent when he speaks English. He's graduated from is it a PhD, if I'm not wrong, from the University of Queensland before you joined back in Antioquia, right?
Well, I did my PhD at the University of Adelaide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very wonderful. So it's
a master's degree at the University of Queensland. Yeah.
Oh, great. And so it's very good to have you here. Maybe I'll start with David to start with maybe the national level. David, can you maybe just share with us the latest developments in Colombia? So there's been changes in terms of at the government level. There's changes at the Agencia Nacional de Minería, but in general, the strategy and the lines in terms of minería bien hecha is still implemented, or are there some changes that you foresee for the next coming weeks and months that you would like to share with our audience here?
Oh, thank you, Remi, for your kind introduction, and thank you for this kind invitation. I would like to say hi to Santiago and to all the people who are with us attending the coffee chat. Thank you a lot. Yes, of course, there are a lot of changes in the next coming months in the National Mining Agency and with the authorities. We just changed we have a new minister. We'll be having a new president of the National Mining Agency. But something that I would like to remark and say is that sometimes the people change, but the institutions continues, and we have been doing a great job at the government level, including the ministry and also the National Mining Agency. Basically, our work has been focused in implementing the best practices in Colombia, but also giving a strength to the sector, especially at the government level. We have been working very hard in the digitalization program of all the documents that as a national mining agency we have in the stock, and now it's getting digitalized. And also one important thing about the improvement of the sector in Colombia, it is related with the new cadastre system that we call in Colombia the ANA Minería. It is very important for us. We are going to be launching the third cycle of the ANA Minería in the next Friday. So it is related with the evaluation of the applicants and applications in Colombia. So it's something that the sector has been waiting a lot. So the cadastral system is something that is going to improve not only the efficiency of all the applicants applications in the National Mining Agency, but also it's going to improve and it's going to support all the companies and all the people who wants to make an application in Colombia to have a faster answer, but also more transparent information about the sector. So we have been, I mean, the National Mining Agency and the ministry is going to continue to improve, bring in innovation to the sector, and also, I mean, I think nothing is going to change. Only a person, but the activities and the ideas are going to continue.
Yeah, and this is really something that we've seen over the last few years, especially under the leadership of Silvana, which we can say hi to if she ever watched this. Silvana and David have done a great job of working on more transparency at the level of the agency, on reinforcing digitalization, reinforcing also legal security over title claims.
Exactly.
And this is really a great job that has been done over the last few years, and that should probably continue at the national agency. But you're talking about stability. I think in Antioquia also, I mean, we had the elections with Aníbal Gaviria as the new governor, but obviously the track record of Aníbal Gaviria as being a pro-mining governor, understanding the contribution that the sector can do for sustainable development and for development in the province and in general in Colombia, and having the right sustainability, best practices in place to make sure that there's no impact or limit the impact on the environment. Can you maybe explain, Santiago, on your side, what is the strategy that you try to implement in Antioquia? I know about the concept of ecominería, to which we participated with Jorge Ramillo, other concepts. If you're able to just explain those and how you're moving forward on development of mining in Antioquia, that'd be very interesting.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Remy. Hi, everyone. So, yeah, the first thing that you mentioned about the new governor, so he is a person that we could call a miner, right? So his dad was a mining engineer. His brother, who was killed in 2000 something when he was governor, he was also a mining engineer, and they used to own a very popular mine here in Colombia, which is called El Roble, which was the first copper mine here in Colombia. It was owned by his family, and I think it was Mitsubishi actually from Japan. And so the prospect for mining in Antioquia with this new governor, well, this is his second time being governor, so it's not new, but it's I think we have a very clear path to go forward with this governor, and the main idea is to work together with the national agency. So for the people who don't know how the mining agencies work or secretariats, I have to say that Antioquia is the only delegate for mining in Colombia. We have the only delegation, so it is like so we have up here the ministry, then we have our big brother, that's how we call the national agency. They are our big brother, and we are the little brother.
And obviously, the importance of Antioquia is quite obvious. With I mean, you have, if I'm not wrong, 4 out of the 5 largest projects in Colombia with the PINES, Proyecto de Interés Nacional, with B2 Gold in Engelgul Ashanti in Gramalote, with Zijin Continental Gold in Buritica. You also have the Quebradona, Engelgul Ashanti, and the Mineros project. How do you actually work on those large projects, and what do you see? Did you see this framework of PINES being effective in helping the development of some of those projects? And do you foresee other projects being able to qualify or to bid for this this specific framework of authorization? Maybe just asking first to David, and then maybe the implementation on the ground with Santiago.
Yes, actually, I'm gonna just highlight to say that, as you mentioned, Antioquia is very important for Colombia. And we have been working with the Secretariat of Antioquia, with Santiago, and with Jorge Jaramillo, and all his team. It's very important for us, Santiago, just to give you a highlight. Probably 70% of the production of gold in Colombia belongs to Antioquia. So it's very important. And also, as you mentioned, some probably 5 of the top pines, how do we call it here? That doesn't sound very good in English, but so sorry for those people, but very important projects in Colombia. No, it's funny because every time that when we go to PDAC or Australia, they always make laugh of us, like, why did you call like that? So those, yeah, it's very important for us because basically the Pines project is a strategy that is in head of the presidency of the Republic with Ms. Clara Parra, who is the counselor for, let me think, special projects in Colombia, let's say like that, probably the best way for the audience to understand. So basically what we were trying to do is to support and accelerate the production of those companies, or to keep the production of those very important projects for Colombia that basically are qualified in terms of royalties, employment, and etc. That has like a very high impact. I think like the strategy works really good, very good. Probably it could improve much better in some cases, but it is important. I think like one of the most important goals, we can see like that goal in the case of Continental, Sijin Continental, now that the Chinese company did the acquisition of Continental. We work together as a presidency, as a ministry, and as a Secretariat Antioquia all together to make real this project. For us, it's very important to have this support because sometimes, just to remember, we have different authorities to be able to authorize the exploitation of the minerals. Mm-hmm. So in this case, we are the mining authorities, Secretariat Antioquia, the National Mining Agency, but also the environmental ministry. So it's very important to have one support from the head, which is presidency, just to coordinate the work together, just to make real all the projects. So it's very important. The case of Antioquia, I mean, we have Continental, as you mentioned, all of them, Gramalote, Quebradona, just to mention some of them. It's a very important region for us as a country. And yes, we need all the support at a national level and local level at the same time.
And maybe Santiago, to see the implementation on the ground, and whether it's with the Programa de Interés Nacional or other projects in Antioquia, how do you work with different organizations, whether it's Core Antioquia, whether it is different groups of interest in the province? How do you facilitate the relationship, and what is kind maybe of lessons learned or advices that you would actually share with some of our partners from the mining sector? I see some people in the audience that actually have smaller projects or operate on projects outside of Antioquia. But it's interesting to see in Antioquia the relation between the different entities and how you can support mining companies moving forward into their assessment and to their licensing process.
Okay, yeah, well, like for us here in Antioquia, being a state or a department, as we call it, is well, the way to have relations with Core Antioquia, Cornare, and Corpoulava, which are the 3 environmental entities that we have here in Antioquia. It's a quite open relation, so we have communications in both ways. So we normally have like some round tables and we work on the pines. And so, for example, for the pines, we have to work with ANLA, which is national level, right? So yeah, at the moment we are assessing Quebradona. So what we are currently doing is that we're having some regular meetings with the environmental agencies, and we discuss things. So we ask them things, they ask us, and that's how it works, right? And for the smaller projects, it's with the corporaciones ambientales or environmental corporations, which are called CARs. And with them, we have very good relations with. So we have meetings with them where they are not scheduled, but every time we need them or they need us, we just give us a call, and it's very open.
Yeah, and these are more than words. I mean, we actually, I've been working with you on a regular basis, Santiago. I'm actually surprised to see you in the office and not in your house with a beautiful terrace where we actually work, you and I, on supporting mining in Antioquia. But I can definitely, we've seen over the last few years and months specifically some clear progress on some of the projects that you mentioned. It's interesting to see, that there's obviously some difficulties and challenges, but steadily, when you actually take into consideration, Colombia is one of those countries that has really made some key progress from moving from, let's say, a mining sector that was much more influenced by, let's say, the coal industry towards much more, let's say, precious metals, engaging into maybe larger progress and larger projects, investment from Australia, investment from Canada. We've seen this, and as you know, we've been very present in Colombia over the last few years, part of those engagements. But I'm interested now in trying to see maybe the impact of the current COVID crisis since obviously the last 3 or 4 months. Yep. How has the mining sector in Colombia reacted to this? Maybe more for you, David, and outside of Antioquia, looking at other potential mining jurisdictions in the country, and also potentially how we've seen progress on issues of community relations, or difficulties on issues of community relations and social license. If you can maybe give us like a little macro view on this, David, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, I will.
Remi, before.
Sorry, yes, Santiago.
Yeah, before we move forward towards the COVID topic, I would like to say something about Antioquia as well, and it is the cement industry that we have. We have some of the best limestones with 98-99% of CaCO3, and so when you say that outside the country, people they don't believe that, because normally you find 60% CaCO3 limestones and things like that. So here we have that like pure, it's like 98-99% limestones. So
that explains the strength of a group like Grupo Argos, for example, that actually
yes, Grupo Argos, they produce something that is called white cement, and they just have to basically send it to the mill, and that's it. It's all done, and so it's one very important industry here in
almost as pure as the aguardiente that you regularly take on Paquilla. But
I see that you don't forget El Retiro yet. Get over it.
David, can you maybe share some of your thoughts? I was saying the evolution of the mining sector over the last few months and what they have been able to face and adapt.
Yeah, no, the evolution has been like a very positive, being honest. I would like to say to the audience that it's very important to remember that Colombia, the mining sector in Colombia is quite new. We had like and when we talk about mining sector in Colombia, it depends also on the mineral. So if we talk about the coal, we have like 3 large companies who were established probably more than 40 or 50 years ago. At the time, those were Cerrejón, Drummond, and Prodeco. I would like to include also Cerro Matoso, which is nickel, ferronickel, but those were like the minings that they began operation long time ago. But then we have a lag about 50 years because we had the securities issues that we all know that we have been improving, but a lot, but we had those securities issues, but also that we were unable to go to the territory to make more exploration for other minerals. But also probably the policy in Colombia few decades ago was more focused on hydrocarbons, probably trying to be more like Venezuela rather than probably to be, like Venezuela in terms of oil rather than Chile and Peru in terms of mining. So that's why probably we didn't have a strong regulation and a strong entities 1 decade ago, 2 decades ago. We are beginning since about 8 years that when the National Mining Agency began as an entity in Colombia, and the sector is new. And that's why when we talk about gold and copper, especially, I would like to highlight gold. When you see the first operation after 30 years, I would say like an industrial operation in Colombia was Red Eagle. They began operation in 2018, but it was like after 30 years. So that's just to give you an idea of the lack that we have. So I would like to say that Colombia has all the opportunities in this moment. After Red Eagle, we have new operations like Alicanto, Antioquia Gold, now Sijin, and we are expecting to have other operations, copper operation like Quebradona, Anglo Gold Ashanti, Gramalota from B2 Gold, etc. So I think like we've been very positive. Those companies are moving fast, but also they are doing the things right, which is very important to highlight. Colombia, because the sector is new in our country, we have some challenges. Those challenges probably could be one of those that you are mentioned. It's about the relation with the communities, and it's very focused with perceptions. So nowadays, the companies, all these companies that I mentioned, but also all the exploration companies in territory are doing a great job implementing strategies to improve their social the relations and getting the social license in Colombia, which is very important and is one of the challenges. How difficult it is, it depends on the region, it depends on the mineral, but I think it's moving very well. And this is like a ball of snow. The first step was Red Eagle. Now the ball is increasing with other projects, and also in Colombia, the communities are beginning to change that perception and understanding that the mining activity is positive for the territory, generate employment, but also royalties for the municipalities. So I think it's positive. I think the industry is going well. You mentioned about the COVID, because also the oil prices decreased a lot in the last years. The government began to understand that we had, and also the geological service improved their studies in the territories, and we just discovered that we have good potential for gold, copper, nickel, but also for many other minerals. So the government and the national level, we understood that the mining activities can be also very important or it is already important, but it could be more important, and it could afford more for royalties, because our royalties were decreasing in the hydrocarbon sector. So mining activities were getting more relevance in Colombia. So after the COVID, one of the positive news were like the mining activities were not excluded of the operation. So basically the impact was very hard. I would like to say that I would say like probably was very hard for those companies who have large operation and who are nowadays under production. So companies who have more than 1,000 employments, but at the exploration level, I think the impact, of course, there was an impact, but it was not like as hard as we thought, because for them was easier to go and make exploration in the territories where they are already isolated, so they don't need like a social distance because they are completely alone in the middle of the jungle. So it was easier, and they were able, after we just stopped like for a few weeks while we were getting like the regulation, but the exploration activities continue in Colombia. And Colombia, because we have that lack of 50 years, I would say like basically in gold and copper, Colombia is an exploration country. So that's why I think it's been like a positive, or not like that, but like as in other countries, because the exploration activities continue in Colombia, and the mining activities were excluded of any restriction.
Maybe to follow up and see an implementation of this in Antioquia, a question to Santiago. And before I do this, just a reminder that if you want to ask any questions, just feel free to use the chat option. I'm happy to relay to David or to Santiago if you have a specific interest in a state or in a department, or in a Colombian department.
Okay, well,
Santiago, is my question to you. I've had the pleasure over the last few months and years to spend a lot of time in Buritica, San Roque, I was actually in El Bagre just before the closing of the frontier, so I almost stayed with you in Antioquia. I would have liked this rather than to be here. Anyway. But the idea here is that I've seen that when you look at San Roque, so Bramalote, Buritica, that's Continental Gold, or you're looking at El Bagre for Mineros, those are areas which, especially in the case of El Bagre, is slightly remote, where you have, yes, a tradition and history of mining, but also a lot of informal miners. And we've seen in other jurisdictions in Brazil and Mexico in past weeks, the rise of informal miners during COVID, obviously for need of subsistence, the lack of presence maybe of the mining companies when they have to implement specific protocol. What is the situation today in El Bagre, in San Roque, in Buritica? Are you seeing a resurgence of the informal miners that, Continental Gold had a hard time just trying to push away? And can you maybe give the views from on the ground in Antioquia?
Okay, yes. So, well, yeah, well, let's make something clear first. It's not because we have informal miners and then we have some that are like illegal, almost criminal miners. Those are the ones that we have seen that they have increased a lot during the lockdown period, right? So for the COVID. And so yes, let's call it illegal mining. It has increased. It has increased a lot here in Antioquia. We've been working very close with the police and the not the Navy. I forgot.
Army.
Yes.
Español te traduzco si quieres, sin problema.
No, it's just, yeah, el ejército. Yeah, I forgot how to say that in English.
Army.
Yeah. With the army, yes. So yeah, it has increased a lot, but well, I think that now that we are opening a little bit from the lockdown, I think we will have more things to do and to check in the territory itself. And in regards to the mining companies, we have been working together with them from the Gobernación de Antioquia and the mining companies. We have a work table, and we have been having meetings every 3 or 4 weeks. And what they did is that they have make longer the shifts. Mm-hmm. So they've been thinking about working, I think it is like 60 days on and like 15 or 20 days off, things like that, because they have to put the person in a lockdown before they go to the actual project. So yeah, that's why they are thinking of 60 days on and 20 or something off.
Yeah, and if I may, I mean, if you are an investor, or if you're a company that is potentially facing, informality and the rise of informal miners / illegal miners, although they're very different, let's be very clear here. In Colombia, yep. I know Santiago, the team at the Secretariat de la Gobernación de Antioquia, has a very clear protocol with the local army and different approach as to address the informality. Some work that has been done in Continental until, let's say, 2 years ago under Mateo Estrepo has been very interesting to replicate potentially in other mining projects. There are some protocol that could be implemented. We're happy to engage into this conversation, but the situation in Colombia is very specific in the sense that you need to really understand the interest behind some illegal miners and the history behind informal miners, and rather than antagonize informal miners, there's plenty of best practices that we have implemented in Colombia and other countries of how making sure that informal miners understand the impact of the arrival of industrial players, but are also potentially signing a contract and agreement to continue their operation on the concession site under specific, obviously guidelines and environmental protections, let's say processes and others, but they therefore become often your first line of defense in front of potential criminal organization looking, especially in the gold sector, conventional lander, work. And that's interesting to see the work that has been done in Antioquia, maybe at the level also of the national agency. David, I don't know how you actually tackle those issues of both explaining the issue of formalization processes. I know that's been a key work at INMA. What has been the result of the attempt at formalizing smaller miner ASM mining in Colombia? Have you reached your objectives, or is there still a long way to go?
There is still a lot of work to do, because in terms of formalization, it's not only about make the formalization process with the communities. It's also about the culture of business and how to getting formalized. So it's not about the procedure or providing a mining title. In the case of Antioquia or in Colombia, we have about I manage one of those formalization programs, which is called the Special Reservation Areas. So in those areas, we have 114 permissions to make exploitation, and they are in this process of formalization. It's very important to highlight that it's more about how to change the way of thinking about to be formalized, not only about the legal status. In terms of illegality, it is something managed from the Ministry of Defense. We don't get involved in that. I would say as a national mining agency, we work more like a chamber of commerce. So we only work with those who are registered in the National Mining Agency, and the other ones are for us illegal. And it is very important to highlight that there is in some areas a lot of criminality, as you mentioned before. So it is very important to fight against them. It is real that also the gold price has been increasing a lot. We have a new record. We are about, I don't know how we are today, but we are about 1,800 ounces. Sorry, in English. So what happened in Colombia? We have betas, but also we have how to say the gold is spread in the territory. So that's why we have basically in any part of Colombia, you can just take a little bit of earth and you will get gold at the same time. So that's why we have a lot of informality, but it's very important to also to highlight that there is a lot of ways to formalize. I think there are basically 5 different ways how a community or a person can get formalized. But more than getting formalized is the culture. So we have been working as a national mining agency, also with the Secretariat in Antioquia, to make technical assistance to those, not only actually formalization programs, also mining companies, small miners, just to support them, and not only in technical skills, but also in entrepreneurship. So because it is very important for us that even though if they are miners, they have to understand that they are also a business, they are a company. So they will change the way to do the things in territory. So basically, that's how we are working. And I would like to say that it's very difficult to fight the criminality. In this sense, more than sending the army, we have been, I would say, as a Colombia, very effective in understanding the business of illegality. That's why we have been implementing a lot of technology in all our procedures, just to be more transparent, but also more effective in the due diligence of all the gold chain. So we have to fight the business more than the people. So sorry, no. Remi, can you hear me?
Completely understand, and obviously I'm kind of linking it to the question that Carlos asked about, generating business models for communities, looking specifically at the environmental impact of exploration. I mean, we've been engaged with a very large mining actor in Colombia for several years now, trying to develop this concept of creation of value for the territory and with the territory. So I probably will go a little deeper into this just after, but I'd like to ask a question to Santiago on these issues of environmental impact. I mean, I know that, with Jorge Jaramillo, with, Carlos Montes, with you, we actually help, develop this concept of ecominería. Can you actually explain what is ecominería in Antioquia? And maybe after ask the same question with minería bien hecha for you, David, which is almost the same idea of concept, a little bit more comprehensive and englobing. But can you maybe, Santiago, tell us what is the ecominería concept that you're developing in Antioquia? And then I'll turn to David and I'll continue on value creation, please.
Okay, so yeah, we've been studying the mining sector, right? And we think that that we have basically three causes of the bad reputation that the mining industry has here in Colombia, right? So we came up with three causes, main causes. The first one is lack of innovation, yeah, right? So we've been using mercury for, I don't know how many thousand years, I would say, yeah, a couple of thousand years, and we still use it. So that's a lack of innovation. The other cause is bad practices. It is not always the companies have the best practices, speaking like socially and environmentally, and the other is the lack of communication and information, right? So those are the main three causes that we found, and that's why we have come up with this idea of ecominería, which is eco-friendly mining, and we think that we have to adopt the best practices. There is a lot of innovation to do. There are many different techniques to do mining, right? So it's not only about gold, but also with rock paper and bioproducts that there are in the market. So that's basically what we want to address with ecominería, that bad image that the mining sector has, and that's basically it. Yeah.
And indeed, that's something that is fundamental in Colombia, in the sense that the reputation of mining is probably worse than it has been in other countries. There's obviously, especially for precious metals, there's been let's say a consideration, a vision from communities that gold mining was just an additional way to launder money from criminal activity and others. And there's been a lot of work done for the last few years, and that is finally starting to bear fruit, to explain that formalized industrial gold mining, copper mining is much different from the cliche ideas or the sensationalist headlines about laundering money. There's actually real value creation that can be managed. Maybe I'll just turn to you, David, if you want to discuss, especially I think the minería bien hecha concept was very close to this idea. Maybe you can also address the question that we have from Felipe on ASM, LSM contract mining in being more effective than formalization processes. I don't know if you saw that, but can you maybe just present what is minería bien hecha and how that applies specific to ASM, LSM?
Okay, yeah. I would like to start with just to complement what Santiago mentioned, which is actually a very important initiative in Antioquia, and it's very positive. I would like just to say, to do minería bien hecha, we need transparency, to be transparent. That includes, and we already talked about that, about the innovation and technology, of the information, but also best practices. We also spoke about that. But I think that is very important to strengthen the relationship at the entities at the national level. It's very important to have a very well and coordinated work between the National Mining Agency and Secretariat Antioquia with the environmental authorities, just to be more efficient to do the minería bien hecha, or well done mining, which is very important. That in a level, but also I would say for us, and this is also related with the small scale miners and also formalization programs. 2-3 years ago, it was 2018. Sorry, I'm very bad with the dates, but it was probably 2 to 3 years ago. The Constitutional Court said that we had to do some consultations programs with the local authorities and also public hearings before granting a mining title. It was very difficult at the moment because we thought probably it could become more political, the decision, and more difficult to approve and to grant the mining titles. But nowadays, it's been very important, and it is very related with the questions about like minería bien hecha, because when we went to the territories, we just discovered that even though in municipalities where they were like mining operations, the mayors, they didn't know anything about mining activities. So for us was an opportunity to understand the territories and also the fears and the doubts that the communities have in their territories. And it is very important because when you talk about the minería bien hecha, you can do it in a technical way, very well done, but also very important to do it with the communities and understanding their fears and their perceptions. And you have to work in that social perspective. So for us, it was a huge opportunity, and it's been like a very positive. I would say like it's something positive in Colombia that a National Mining Agency and also the Secretariat Antioquia, before granting a mining title, we always make a consultation process with the local authority, and also we bring all those applications to a public hearing, and we explain to the community, we listen their fears, and we provide those answers. Nowadays, we have about more than 300 consultations with the main mayors of the municipalities. Also, we have about 80 auditing process in many municipalities. We would like to move faster, but sometimes we don't have all the human resources, but also the COVID and many other things, but we are really moving fast. And also we need to prioritize all the municipalities. So it's been positive. I mean, it's been positive, and that's probably the best way to make minería bien hecha, and it's working with the communities and with the territories.
No, absolutely, and I think that's very interesting to mention. How to work with communities, with territories. There's a question specifically on relationship between government level and regional level on social license to operate. So we have the government level here, and we have the regional level here with Santiago. So there are good communication. Maybe I'll just tackle that one, since that's a lot of the work that we do also in Colombia and in other countries. We've been, without saying name, we've been involved with two main actors in Colombia in trying to generate indeed value for the community. So understanding that, the mining sector can be a vector for value creation for the territory and break away from this bad. I think we made strong progress in Antioquia. That's very arrogant of me, but by working with universities, with the Bolivariana, with the University of Medellin, trying to just set a better narrative on mining, and just bring scientific arguments, bring some best case practices, explain how you can engage with communities, how you can engage with population, make the business case that this actually could be a very strong value for them by supporting small projects. So there's a series of ways that you can do that. We have a few tools and a platform that we will introduce very soon that can be actually implemented. It will be implemented in Antioquia, and we'll do it in other jurisdictions. But the idea is really to... And
there is no recipe, actually.
Yeah, well, there's no one single recipe. The problem is, working on communication and working on trust and setting standards of what could be, an ideal relationship with maybe parts of the community incrementally, by supporting sometimes financially, but much more with time and understanding of, bringing some knowledge of how to develop a small business, help the cafeteros, help some cooperative of informal miners, help some projects of catering or others. There are plenty of different tools that we've been engaged with that we can actually happy to communicate. If you look at, the history of our events, I see Alexander Arobo, for example, from Ecuador, in Ecuador. So that's a work that really showcase different ideas of how to create value, and therefore, just move away from trying to win the minds and the hearts just by communication, but actually go with strong examples of what has been successful, how you make sure to, provide the professionalism and some very, let's say, modern managerial skills from the mining sector, and try to replicate it in some sectors, that are in the vicinity of the mining project, whether it is on ecotourism, or it could be on, agropecuarium I can't speak English, I'm speaking Spanish at the same time, but agro-industrial projects, and that is, there's some clear, processes to follow. Happy to communicate. Probably we'll do something specifically on ESG finance, probably at the end of this month, a specific coffee chat, and we'll look at very clear example of generating value for the community.
Fantastic.
Communicating on this. And if you do this, then that's would be very effective for mining companies in Colombia, especially because it fits within this minería bien hecha or ecominería processes in Colombia. The issue is really to be able to work on formalization of communities, understanding the fact that, and that might be a tricky question for you, David, I'm sorry for that, but the problem that you have in Colombia, if I may, as opposed to another jurisdiction, has been this entire debate about the royalty structure and how much of the royalty would actually trickle down to the community. So without going too much into a history class, my understanding is that the former system that was under Uribe has been changed by the Santos administration, much more to the advantage of, let's say, the national budget and the non-producing, department, as opposed to, let's say, Antioquia, to Risaralda, to other areas that might be more, prone to mining. And there was discussion about potentially rechanging that role, with a low project from Duque of 50-50, if I understand well the split. When right now it's 80-20, that would actually help recover with the support of the communities, the same communities that have been burned in La Colosa, in other places, because suddenly this cut in royalties has been not in the favor of the mining communities themselves. Where are we in terms of this reform here of the renegotiation, the split of royalties between producing departments and national government, and is it going to be able to strengthen the support of communities to mining projects on the ground?
Yes, actually it already changed. So we have a new structure that basically, I don't have the formula in this moment here, how it really happened. I mean, the distribution, but it just already changed, and it's basically like at the double that they were receiving the municipalities than with the former president. So, but I would say like more than the communities is kind of difficult because the royalties, the communities don't have the perception of the royalties in the sector. So it's something more like more relevance in the relations with the local authorities. So because they are the ones who need those monies to get invested in the roads and invested in their project. But sometimes, unfortunately, the community don't perceive that money, or sometimes it is not very well invested. I would say like more than the royalties formula, which just it's more like efficient in this moment for the communities and the territories. I would like to highlight that we also get some incentives that allow the companies to invest in Colombia and pay their one incentive that we create actually we copy from Peru is the Obras por Impuesto. I just forgot how to say that in English. Sorry, if you can support me.
It's work against taxation, basically. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But also royalties by taxation, royalties working by taxation. Sorry, I just get confused. Not only so that also help the companies to invest in the territories and reduce the payment of the dues that payment that they have to pay in taxes. Also, they can make it directly in the territories. So yes, the royalties change in favor of the it's just like get like in a middle stage, but also we create new incentives that help the companies to invest in the territory so the communities can see that perception.
Is there a way for you, and I know it's not your mandate, okay, obviously I'm just trying to follow up on a couple of questions that just came about, the use of royalties budget and corrupted use at different places. There's the example of La Guajira that a lot of people just bring about, the fact that La Guajira is supposed to have received the most royalties in Colombia, but at the same time it is the poorest department in Colombia. So a lot of the arguments from the opposition to the key mining projects are always, taking this example of Aguajira and taking the example of how some of the royalties have gone into potentially the wrong pocket, were not used adequately. Is there a way that ANM, or maybe at the level of the Gobernación de Antioquia, that you can actually monitor this and make sure that the use of those funds is actually made in favor of the communities?
Actually, we don't, because we don't have that competence, but because the only thing that we do is to collect the royalties and we send it to the government, to the ministry, the MP and the Ministry of Hacienda Treasury in Colombia, and they do they just make they reparten in every municipality and department. So we don't have control and we don't have the competence. But what I can say is that all the mining companies, all the pymes, and basically all the companies, they pay their royalties, and they do a very positive work to support companies on those territories. The case of Cerrejón in Guajira is fantastic how they work, just to not only to pay the royalties, but also to support communities and to provide them facilities to improve their living. But I mean, if there is a corruption at the government level, or a local mayor is doing any corruption, you have to make the denuncia. Sorry. So you don't have to support that person. So more than the companies, I think, like the mining activities, we always give more than we have to. Actually, companies invest a lot of money, probably more than what they pay in royalties, to support communities. But sometimes, I mean, it's a problem of the local governments.
Maybe to build on your answer, and we're working on a pilot project that we probably will launch, in exclusivity in Antioquia first, and then the rest of the world, of trying to have a transparency platform of exchange, and where indeed in those denouncing the misbehavior, or making the case for successful projects supported by mining companies or others, can be actually much more showcased with the right transparency. The problem that you have in the mining sector, in Colombia in particular, is the lack of capacity to really communicate on what has been successful, and try to debunk some of the arguments against the mining sector or in favor of the mining sector, but rarely, that actually are not based on scientific facts. So that's the idea here of being able to cut with this. I'm happy to chat to some the people that mentioned corruption on royalties.
Yes.
But, by simplifying, by cleaning up a little bit the processes and the capacity from,
of course,
actors in population to have kind of a check and balance process with different newspaper, with different companies and others. I mean, in Antioquia, we work with El Mundo, for example. We work with different news outlets to be able to showcase the positive impact, but actually put a large red cross on when there was mismanagement, so that doesn't actually completely stole the mining sector because of the mismanagement of a minority of different people. And maybe if you wanted to add something, David.
Yes, something up, just very fast. Sorry, Santiago, thank you. No, just to highlight and just to complement what I said and what you're saying also, it's really important to remember that Colombia, I mean, we understood that that concern about the communities and about the mining titles and companies, sorry. We just we were like implementing best practices, and it's very important to remember that Colombia is part of the EITI initiative. So especially mostly of the I probably could say like all the most important projects in Colombia are part of that initiative. So if any person, for those who doesn't know what initiative is, it's a transparency initiative. And actually, the coal companies like Cerrejón, Drummond, and Prodeco, and many others, just to mention some of them, they work a lot with the government in the implementation of that initiative. They were volunteers in that initiative, and any person who wants to see how they pay their taxes and royalties, anyone in Colombia, if they access to through EITI, they're able to confirm that the companies are doing a very own job in terms of paying taxes, but also in territories. So it's very important. So that's why it is very important for Colombia to implement those best practices, but also having the technology to make the track of all the payments and things like that. Sorry, that's something very fast to complement.
Santiago,
and Remi, yes. I think here in Antioquia, we have two outstanding examples of companies who engage, who really engage community. And those two examples, I think that it's Mineros SA with the beekeeping program they have. So now the Bajo Cauca, which is the region, they are producing like one of the best honeys in the country, and I think they are even exporting honey to the US and things like that. And it was done like with Mineros, and I think it was I don't remember who. It was a cooperation agency. I don't remember which one. I think it was no, I don't remember.
BGI probably, or
and the other example is with Continental. They've been like CG Continental. They have worked very close with the communities.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
they have had some illegal miners problems, but that was the kind of miners that they didn't want to legalize their activities, right? So there was this army operation, but apart from that, they have very good relations with their communities.
I actually have a few follow-up questions specifically on Continental, but I want to mention, you mentioned Mineros that's doing a good job with the aluminum mining in the Bajo Cauca. I mean, you mentioned there's also Continental Zijin has had a very interesting project with on the coffee growing. Same thing with Angolo Ashanti, and they're actually developing some very interesting initiative with the Suroeste. So I'm happy to bring that to your understanding and to anyone that could be interested. But looking at, we have a couple questions on how, you know, large-scale mining projects were able to establish coexistence with artisanal miner. And I think, to me, the only real case here would be Zijin Continental in Buritica, because you do have, you know, engagement with artisanal miner in Gramalote. You do have some other cases, but we're not talking about producing assets, large-scale producing assets as of today. But can you maybe just walk us onto how Continental Gold, now Zijin, was able to move from a situation which was, if I'm not wrong, more than 10,000, you know, illegal and informal miner, and then, you know, being able to arrive to a situation where it's much more pacified. There is a resurgence today. We have to be clear about this, but it has to happen. But I mean, if you actually look at the different processes that you do, that they implemented, can you actually maybe present it to the audience? Because I think there's a couple of questions on this specifically.
Well, I don't know the actual scheme they use, because we have like 4 or 5 legalization schemes, but what they, I think it was, how to say that in English?
Que me lo dices en español, te lo traduzco si quieres.
Sí. Creo que eran subcontratos.
Okay, suppliers.
Okay, so yeah, they basically, they sort of hire the miners. they basically hire the miners so that the miners can work on their title, and they process the mineral, and they pay the miners with a formula for their gold, right? So that's the kind of the scheme that they use to legalize those miners in Buritica. And I think there is another very outstanding example, and it is La Maria in Gramalote. Right? Mm-hmm. So they have also had a very good relation with the community. They even have to redesign I think it was the pit, so that they can give an area to those miners that wanted to get legalized.
Yeah.
So originally they have one very large pit, and now they have two smaller ones. So that's a very good example, I think, for legalization as well, because changing your pit design, your final pit design, it's a very good way of showing that we care about the communities. Yeah.
Yeah, and just actually, I'm looking at information that I received privately. The beekeeping project was actually developed with USAID, of course.
Yes,
USAID. And Interactuar. Those are, I mean, that's why it's fundamental in Colombia, first of all, to understand the specificities of your project. The communities are very different from one project to the next, especially because, I mean, the kind of remote projects that you can find in Colombia, the lack sometimes of infrastructure has led to, you know, a very indigenous development of El Bajo Cauca or Suroeste or other places. So obviously you need to be very knowledgeable of your surrounding and the project itself. When you're looking at USAID, and I'd like to just maybe reach out to a question that was asked by Jennifer Lucero Zuniga in Peru about the fact that, you know, it's very hard to formalize and fight against, you know, corruption and mafias in specifically the selva part, the forest part, and in Peru. There are some cases also in Colombia of this. USA is actually one actor. We've been working a lot with U.S. embassies in Peru, a little less in Colombia. I didn't have the time, but you know, there are key projects that are trying to limit criminal organization from laundering money through gold mining specifically. Happy to engage with you and show you how you can probably partner with some of those organizations from the US that actually do have some funds to work on this. But is there a specific way that, you know, Colombia, and I'm asking David specifically, tries to, you know, tackle this issue of criminal organization, whether it's Clan del Golfo in Buritica specifically, or same thing in Gramalote? There are some organizations, I mean, we know them, that, you know, are you know, in very close to the mining site itself, and do have some influence on the way that informal miners behave and the kind of options that they have on the table, whether to side with the formal industrial mining company or other organization. How do you actually tackle this? And I see that it's already 12 or 11 in Colombia. So actually, I'm going to ask.
No, I still have time. So no, we're not. Actually, it is very important to make a difference between informal miners or artisanal miners from illegal exploitations, because that's like a criminality, and that's something that the army works. And we have like a satellite, so where we make all the support the auditing process that we do to all the title. So we also make by satellite that we have in the National Mining Agency pictures about the information about what it is like illegal operations, and we have a connection with the army, but also with the Fiscalia. But it's their work. I mean, we don't work with the illegal miners. We only work with those, let's say, informal and artisanal miners, to support them, to get them formalized. It's very important, actually, the formalization. And I saw the question that I forgot her name from Peru that she did, yes. But it's very challenging. Let me tell you, the formalization process is very, very challenging, because it's not only about, as I mentioned, getting a status or just to give them provide them a contract or a permission to exploit. It's also about the culture, but not only about the culture, it's also about being a manager of the subsoil of the territory. So it's very important to understand when, and it's, I would say that it's of course, a formalized operation is an opportunity for the territories, brings employment and also royalties for the communities and many positive things. But for us, it's very important to understand the potential that they have. So sometimes there are like large communities that they want to exploit an area where they don't have the knowledge and the skills and the resources and the let's suppose, I don't know, Buritica project, the knowledge, research, things that companies like CGN Continental have to make a good operation, that probably an informal doesn't have that capacity to make an efficient exploitation for Colombia. It's very important to manage that, and that's one thing that is very challenging. And also in some cases, we support them with some geological studies because once they get formalized, the National Mining Agency provide them a geological study. It is also very hard when we have to say like they don't have more potential than probably 4 or 5 years. so we don't proceed to provide them a mining contract. So it's difficult, it's challenging, but I think formalization process is very positive and brings a lot of opportunities. Actually, it's very important because if we support an informal to get formalized, and we support them with a little bit of knowledge and technical and in terms of education, probably in the near future, and if we as a national mining agency, we make a good work with them, it's also that a small project could become a large project with the support or investment of or acquisition, all the many ways, or joint venture with a other company, foreign company that has the skills and the capacity to make a larger exploitation. So formalization is very important for us as a country. I think is a club in Colombia, very important. So yes, I mean.
And on formalization, maybe just to give a step, what would be the next step for people that are interested in trying to improve their relationship with informal miners and see them, we actually really see them as an opportunity for development rather than a worry and a concern. Criminal miners, yes, but there was just to if you look at the LinkedIn site, the group that we have there, we made a couple of interviews with PACT, specifically with a partner of us. They actually are present with Somos Tesoro, their name in Colombia. There was also Brandon Bush that was in this chat, but he just left from the ASM Council in Canada. So the way that we work usually is obviously, with national agencies like David, having the right regulatory framework in place and some training, but there's also the capacity to develop a specific financial vehicle where you would have different investors and agencies linked to the United Nations that would actually invest and do some providing some rolling capital for those ASM miners, something that mining companies usually do not want to do themselves because of the reputational impact of not wanting to have the industrial mining processes mixed with more alluvial or informal mining processes. But if you actually outsource it with a specific vehicle, you can even, we've seen some cases, and we worked on one of them of eventually some of those vehicles even being listed on either the TSX or ASX, and being able to look at specifically this production from ASM mining, which is colossal in Latin America, is important in Colombia, but can really be a source of both revenues and support to large-scale mining by explaining the creation from the traditional way of life from the territory and not antagonizing them. And there's plenty of if you're interested in this, please just send me a message and send a message to David, and we'll just sit down with you and explain in Colombia or any other place. And with Santiago, if it's in Antioquia, por supuesto, we will have you on board here. I see that there's additional messages, but we try to finish at 12 or 11 Colombia so that people can actually go on the next meeting. I see that there was a lot of questions on this, so we reorganized maybe another event on Colombia more specifically, maybe with mining companies. And please feel free to just recontact David or contact Santiago directly or through us.
Of course.
To help any investors or mining company or even people opposing the mining sector to be able to understand the concern and work through it and make this a source of creation of value, of income, of support to the country within the traditional belief of some of the region, in consultation with communities and generating value for everyone here. So I just may use the last 10 minutes, although we're actually 2 minutes, although we already passed the time, just to thank David and Santiago. Like our usual drinks in Colombia that actually was supposed to end at 10 p.m. will actually still past midnight, and we continue talking. So I guess that's a habit that we have. But it was a pleasure to have you here, and please come.
Thank you, Remi.
Because I miss you guys.
Thank you, Remi, for your kind invitation, and thank you, Santiago, and thanks to all the audience and all the people who were with us in this coffee chat. And please, if you have any further questions, just let me know, and through Remi or directly, and we will give you the answers.
Santiago?
Okay, so thank you very much, Remi, and your team for having us today here. And yeah, I'm open to questions that I saw some very specific ones. And so if it's up to the people if they want to email me or through Remi, I'm willing to answer them. Yeah.
Perfect. As always, I'm going to leave the meeting open for the next 10 minutes. If people want to ask questions, we will relay them to David or Santiago, answer them ourselves if we actually can do it. But we have a good team in Colombia, and we're with David and Santiago. So, hermanos, fue un placer. Les mando un gran saludo para que nos vemos en persona en Colombia, ¿ok? Un abrazo.
Muchas gracias.
Okay.